Welcome back, blade lovers. This old sword with you. I thought you'd like a little dictionary explanation of the name of this knife, and I'm about a year late in getting to it. Didn't hop on it when it first came out because it is close in design to another Bestech knife, the Shodan. Anyway, managed to pick one up at White Mountain Knives. Justin's currently selling these for about $2.25, less your 10% off for this old sword, I should say, old sword, discount code, old sword, all one word. That'll knock about, $23, $24, $25 off your price. So bringing it down more comfortably close to $200. But let me tell you, you are getting a hell of a knife for that money. And I guess I'm glad that I held off because I got to see a lot of reviews on this particular knife. Most notably from Seth Todd, who goes by the Instagram name of Zelric and also on YouTube. And he reviewed all three of the models of this when it first came out. This one is with the tiger stripe. I call it a flame titanium. They kind of look like tiger stripes. There is a natural gray titanium, and there is a blacked out model, and there is also one with carbon fiber on one side. Let's go over some of the really beautiful features of this knife, and then we will measure it up. Now look at these three holes, which are kind of a signature design language, if you will, of Todd Knife Tool. And in a separate operation, Bestech goes in there and polishes the edges of the circumference on those three holes on both sides. Now they don't do it on the carbon fiber because you can't polish it to the same extent you can on the titanium. Another thing he mentions, Zelric does, is that they used three distinct types of jimping on the spine of this blade. And you can see that here. Now, one you can use with your thumb in this position. Back out a little. One you can use with your thumb all the way up on the ramp. It's a little less aggressive. This is more aggressive. And what he really says is that every single one of their designs is meant to be held using the blade choil right there, finger choil. And that would place the thumb up on top. So if you're doing push cuts, if you're doing heavy work with the knife, you are locked in. And this is not a particularly large knife. It's going to come in around 3.4 inches in the blade. So kind of in the medium range. I held off a bit too because I thought it would be a little too small. Its bigger brother, the Shodan, is a longer blade, over 3.5 inches. So some really beautiful, and I've really become a Todd Knife Tool fanboy. Really fantastic design. There is a floating backspacer, or bridge, or whatever you want to call it, where you've got these gaps in there. You've got a kind of a gear jimping along the pommel. They've been called space age or industrial. A lot of names for their design language, but a very useful on top of everything else. Blade styles. Let's look at the action. So here's something interesting too. This has been sold everywhere as a front flipper, but what Zelric says is that this was really designed for a future type on bushings design that they call a roller lock, and it is perfectly designed to roll the blade out just like that. So just by following that line and coming back, you can thumb it out. Now you can do the same thing with a little more effort here, but the hole tends to be more aligned with flicking it out, I find, because what's happening is to get into that hole, you may be putting pressure on the lock bar. You can finger flick this out, except for that time, with the hole. You can finger flick it out using the fuller, almost. So there are many ways of opening it, and you can use that as a front flipper. Very positive. I kind of like the thumb hole. It's a medium-sized oval. Beautiful fuller that follows it all the way up to there. And we have a very piercy point and yet a good amount of material left to keep it from being fragile. Ergonomically, it is great in the hand, particularly if you decide to choke up. If you decide to choke up, you are going to find that you will not endanger your finger, as with some knives, because some knives will put this choil in there but then leave the edge trailing back, and you can very easily poke your finger on the heel of that blade. In this case, some people curse it out because they feel that this is going to make it more difficult to sharpen, and depending on your sharpening style, that may happen. But if you begin right there with your sharpening, either by hand or otherwise, you shouldn't have a problem. I think where you have a problem is more with the hand sharpening on a stone, where you'd want to begin there or terminate there, and you're going to run into that. So a little more difficulty. I find no problem with these types of blades using a clamp style system like a work sharp or a excuse me, any of your other clamped on sharpeners where you're running the stone along it, wicked edge, what have you. You should be able to get in there with this more narrow stones. So the way it comes through from the factory is extremely sharp. Here's a lovely pre-cut piece of paper that I'll donate. Looking through the camera, it's easy to slice your fingers. And again, it's the technique, but it comes through with what I feel is a nice, smooth yet aggressive edge. And you're welcome to touch it up, strop it, resharpen it, what have you. Let's get some measurements on it before I get too far along. So overall, it's not a small knife. It's 8 1/4 inches with a blade of 3 1/2, a bit longer than I anticipated, and a cutting edge because of the choil of 3 3/8 roughly. Well, let's see what we got for thicknesses. Blade stock in millimeters, 4 millimeters right on the nose. Nice when that happens. Handle 0.51, so not a thick handle, and I think that carries through whether you've got the titanium, all titanium, or whether you've got the carbon fiber slab on one side. Let's close it up, get it on the scale. So there we have a 4.9 ounce knife, under 5 ounces. I will tell you, it feels substantial in the hand. It just has that, I don't want to call it dead weight, but it's sort of like all in one place. It feels solid. And that's one thing I like about Todd Knife Tool designs by Bestech and by We, because they've got a few out from We as well. So let's leave that there and look at another from Bestech. Its bigger cousin, This is the Shodan, and look at the similarity in blades there. Very, very similar, and yet a little longer blade, a little bigger choil, more pronounced and set forward, a bigger flat here with the design on it. This one is in carbon fiber, so you can get this one looking the same as that one. And an entirely different handle profile, which is interesting. Very Strider-esque, some people say. And again, very pronounced jimping. On this one, no jimping on the ramp there. All the jimping's out here. But boy, do you lock in really, really well. Slotted lanyard hole. What do we have for a lanyard hole here? We have no lanyard hole on the exploit. Okay. Now, that's the Shodan. Bring out one more Bestech, and this is the malware. And this guy is with a fine point. Let's see if we can get it focused on there without jabbing the finger. There we go. Very fine. And you got the same oval hole on all three, a little longer on the malware. You've got that choil, still ample choil. This is almost a 4-inch blade on the malware. And this one is also in carbon fiber, but blacked out on the side. So what I was saying earlier, there's your 3 polished holes. There's your 3 holes on the carbon fiber side, obviously not polished. And not as tall a handle by any means, but a very wicked pointy blade. Last one by Todd Knife Tool that I have is by We, and this is the Roxy 4, and we did the Roxy series, the Roxy 2, I think, the Roxy 3, and this is the Roxy 4. This is a 4-inch blade, very tall Warncliffe, very piercing, and once again, same design language, except here on the We design, you've got the 3 holes, but it not being a Bestech arrangement, they did not polish the inside, so that's very interesting. And you have this interesting landing pad here, is what Zelric likes to call it, for the index finger, just kind of giving you a confirmation that you completed the flip. I think that's interesting. So those are the Todd Knife Tool designed blades by Bestech and We. You can see that the exploit comes closest in design to the Shodan. And there they are for comparison. A little bit shorter though, so we've got about an inch shorter overall on the exploit. And here we do have the small back flipper with jimping on the Shodan, as well as, of course, opening it with the hole, reverse flicking it, even using the fuller to open it up. Take another look at the exploit before we wrap up, and we'll do a quick compare with another knife as well, one of my standards. I really like the flame job on this. The other one I could see myself getting would be the gray natural titanium. Just so many neat aspects of this design, and it's also really a functional, great EDC user with a lot of thought that has gone through the whole design and the implementation by Bestech. There's a very prominent over travel stop right there. There's your steel insert for your lock bar. We've got silver hardware, and really extremely well thought out. I would recommend watching Zelrich's review of these knives. Since he's the designer, he can tell you a lot more about them. And that goes back about a year, I think, from today's date. Here is the Griptilian for comparison. And I would say the Griptilian is very close to the same size. The Exploit is edging it out, excuse the pun, just slightly, and slightly longer blade. That is the Bestech Exploit, designed by Todd Knife Tool. There's their emblem, not too heavily branded here. If I didn't mention it, S35VN, but you may already know that. And S35VN is a great steel. A lot of people prefer S30V, prefer M390, etc. But it is a very good serviceable steel, was to be the successor to S30V. And again, I would recommend looking that up on Knife Steel Composition. I know I mention that app a lot. It's just a handy, convenient app. And you may not get everything you need to know on that app, but it's a good starting point. Okay, well, I hope you enjoy this video, and don't forget to give it a like, and there is that symbol over to the right. Click on that and you can subscribe. Take care.